The world's best tennis players are in Toronto and Montreal this week for the Rogers Cup. Among them is Milos Raonic. No other Canadian singles player has ever ranked higher. And like his game, the Maple Leaf Missile has grown a lot since being named Newcomer of the Year in 2011. Raonic has struggled the last couple of years, though, and slipped in the standings. Frustrating, yes, but he says he's not fazed. Susan Ormiston caught up with the tennis star as he prepares to hold court.
Whoa. With a killer serve.
147.
And that razor-sharp focus. Ever since he was a boy growing up in suburban Toronto, Milos Raonic is the most successful Canadian men's player ever. 4 times in the quarterfinals at Wimbledon, including a shot at the finals, he's come oh so close to winning a Grand Slam, rising to number 3 in the world in 2016. But Raonic is facing strong headwinds, injuries, forcing him off the court to recover. He's dropped to 30th in the rankings. Still, you can't dismiss this towering athlete. He's 6'5", so rather than stare up, I hopped up on a step stool. At 27, Raonic is back in Toronto home turf and remembering where it all started.
Milos, welcome to Canada.
Thank you.
Welcome back.
It's good to
You
be
play
back.
so many tournaments. Does it feel any different coming here?
It does.
Why?
I think it's more exciting, but also it's sort of like the little kid in me. This is the only tournament I ever attended as a fan. I never got to go to any other tournaments. This was the week throughout every year that I would practice early in the mornings, then I'd come here and just watch tennis throughout the entire day. Then I went from watching tennis to sort of being a hitting partner to playing qualies, and now being able to play in these tournaments, sort of the headline match on one of the days. So that's exciting for sure.
Tell me something, at this stage in your game, what's the most difficult challenge? Is it physical or mental? Physically
staying healthy. You know, you get an injury, you have to take the time to stop, then you have to sort of work to catch up. Hasn't been sort of a smooth transition, a smooth path. So I think that aspect of it physically and how it sort of affects you mentally, because then you start obviously questioning yourself. Is this going to be the last time you get hurt? When's the next one around the corner? That ends up being the most draining and tiring aspect.
So Wimbledon this year, disappointing for you. You with Federer out of the way, you probably looked at the semis and thought, oh, I could be there. You pulled up with an injury. What did you tell yourself after that?
I guess the one blessing of being hurt a lot of times, you learn to deal with it. Just say, okay, let's heal this as quickly as possible and efficiently as possible. Make sure it's dealt with, not taking any shortcuts, not rushing it back, and then let's put in the work again.
So what was it, a quad?
It was a quad tear, yeah.
So I watched you in that news conference after Wimbledon, the quarters. You had a lot of emotion there. You were discouraged, understandably. Are you worried now that you're running out of time?
No, because there's nothing else I want to do as much as I want to play tennis and to play it well. So they don't feel like sacrifices, and I don't feel this sort of sense of time. Obviously, I'd love to be accomplishing sort of the bigger goals I have quicker, but it's not the case, but it doesn't discourage me in any way.
You're an intense guy. You've always known what you wanted to achieve, but that elusive Grand Slam win has not come your way yet. Why?
Just, there's other guys. It hasn't always been up to me. I wish I was the only guy being asked those questions, but there's a lot of guys there that are vying for the same thing, and then it's also a generation where it's, 3 guys that have been quite greedy about keeping most of them to themselves. So you got to find your way, you got to find your opening, you got to find your opportunity, and you got to try to make the most of it. But I haven't been able to do that, but it hasn't discouraged me in any way. It's each time I get there, I feel closer to it than I was the time before. I feel like I'm a much better player now than I was before. I think for me, the day tennis would be difficult is the day I felt like I couldn't improve anymore. I think that would be sort of the most difficult day for me to accept, where I felt like my game was regressing.
Raonic has boosted Canada several rungs up the tennis ladder, his success spawning a new generation of players.
And we have a rare talent.
Looking to be like him, or better still, beat him. Like Denis Shapovalov, currently ranked higher, he beat Raonic this year in Madrid. Both are at the Rogers Cup this week. Raonic is the face of the tournament, and Shapovalov wants to be.
Milos, you're sort of in a sandwich generation yourself. You've got those big guns at the top, the multiple champions, and then you've got young people, even Canadians, coming up behind you. When you look at a guy like Shapovalov playing, do you analyze his game as sort of a mentor or as a formidable opponent?
think both. That's sort of the way I've always seen tennis is if I was them, what would I want to do better? But then also if I'm playing them, what would I do to make them feel uncomfortable as possible? And all these kind of things.
Does a guy like that make you nervous?
Nervous in the sense that, you know, it's tough to play him, but it's exciting also. I think more than anything, it's an excitement for where we are, and then you sort of look at it in the realm of Davis Cup, what we can do probably all together.
Milos Raonic.
There's more than one reason Raonic is a worthy sports ambassador for Canada. His personal foundation helps disadvantaged youth and has contributed to the Paralympics. He's mostly even-tempered on the court, save for the odd example of extreme frustration. And he's never forgotten his background, the youngest in an immigrant family who fled conflict in the former Yugoslavia to come to Canada.
Your foundation has done a lot for economically and physically disadvantaged kids. But they probably look at you and think, oh, the chance of me getting where you are, that's a long shot. What do you tell these kids?
I think, you know, you have to work hard. Did I think I'd be where I am as a tennis player today? No, not by any means. Even when I decided to go pro, I think I said I hope I can be a fixture in the top 50. You can't be greedy and impatient enough to expect that, hey, if you put in the work for a week or 2 weeks, all that's going to pay off on week 3. It doesn't work that way. And I think that's one thing that people, and kids especially, shouldn't forget.
Milos, you were an immigrant family. You came here as a young boy. This country is trying to figure out how many migrants, what type of migrants we accept, invite into this country. What's your advice?
I think when people come here, they're looking for a new opportunity. That's what it was for my family. The thing that Canada's had for more, I believe, than any other place in the world is the open arms, welcome perspective, where it has felt like home for people very quickly on into their sort of venture and journey to moving to Canada. And I don't think you can forget that. I think that has to stay wide open, and it has to be accepting to people, because if it wasn't accepting to people, it would be tough, you know, taking a family like mine, you know, from a country that was just on the outbreak of war, to and giving us the opportunities they have. And I know I'm extremely grateful for it, and I know every single person in my family is as well.
What happens if you don't get that Grand Slam final?
Nothing. That's it. You know, maybe you deal with disappointment, but you move on pretty quickly.
That's pretty healthy. Do you really feel that way?
You know, would I be disappointed? Yes. Would it change my life? I think it's also the other aspect. What happens if you do? People automatically think your life changes overnight. It doesn't. Because at most, 4 months later, there's another Grand Slam and there's another Grand Slam champion, and you're forgotten about quickly. This sport moves on quickly. I don't believe in the sense of legacy that much and these kind of things. I think that...
What do you mean by that?
Generation after generation, people do get forgotten and left behind. I think you have to do something exceptional. I think Roger is somebody that's going to transcend beyond generations because of what he has been able to achieve. Because sport moves on. It's not like you're changing the world by being a good athlete. All you're doing is you're winning a little bit more than the guy before, and maybe you're breaking some record. What you do off the court can maybe change the world in a way. But being a good athlete doesn't necessarily qualify you as a life-changing person, or even as a good person on its own. And you know, one thing as an athlete, most people, their sort of prime, they're used to when it comes to their career, their work is going to be between 35 to 50. As an athlete, you're pretty much done at 35. So you have to account for, if you're averaging out 70 years of life expectancy, you got to have a new life from 35 on.
So when you finish playing tennis, do you want to stay in tennis, or what will be?
I need to do something else for a little
legacy?
bit. I don't think there will be a legacy. I think there's
Maybe
going to be
not in tennis, but what are you going to do?
I don't believe in the legacy. What would I try? I would love to be an incredible human being to the people that are close to me, the people I truly care about and love. I would love to have a good impact on the kids that I work with, on their lives in some way.
So you're incredibly even. Do you have self-doubt?
I have, always. I think it's impossible to avoid it, but I try to sort of revert to the things that I believe I do well, or I believe that I have certain abilities in, and try to make the most of it.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Really
Really nice to
appreciate
meet you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Raonic's first match is tomorrow in Toronto. He'll take on David Goffin of Belgium. The two have played each other 4 times before. The last time in Madrid last year, each has won twice. And as Susan mentioned, another prominent Canadian playing in this week's Rogers Cup tournament is Denis Shapovalov. They're on opposite sides of the men's draw.
For me, it's exciting to be, to be #1 in Canada right now at such a young age. It's just motivating for me to keep going and hopefully stay #1 for as long as I can.
So is there a budding rivalry underway between Canada's top 2 men's tennis stars?
What he's done for the country and for Canadian tennis has been like a lot more than I have in my career so far. So, I've been looking up to him since I've been growing up, and I still look up to him.
It's possible the two could play each other next Sunday if they both make it to the Rogers Cup final.